make it because he represents the players, and on behalf of the players, clearly there are issues, and you have to do whatever you can to protect them. So this is not to knock DeMaurice Smith in any way. He's simply doing his job as a union leader, but it doesn't make it any less disgraceful. Let's be very, very clear. 87 players have been suspended for substance abuse in the National Football League over the last 3 seasons, totaling $66.9 million in losses. I don't know about you, Max, but I've never seen a joint that cost that much. Never in my lifetime. Josh Gordon lost $1.4 million last year just because of weed. Lord knows how much money others have cost, but we know collectively, cumulatively, $66.9 million in salary have been lost because you can't stay off the weed. That makes no sense whatsoever. And we can sit up there and talk about how it alleviates pain and all of that other stuff. I got all of that. Everybody's got a doctor. Go to a doctor. Get it prescribed for medicinal purposes, and maybe, just maybe, I'll have an argument. But when we talk about weed being used recreationally, and ultimately it elevates itself to addictive proportions, and then the union wants to slide in the back door and say to the NFL, let's make sure we recognize this, not just when they get caught, but let's decipher the difference between you using something recreationally or you being addicted or you having a health issue or whatever the case may be. I'm willing to hear that argument if it's health related. If it is not health related, and by health, I mean a doctor prescribing it for medicinal purposes. You have some cancer patients that use it for medicinal purposes and beyond. Something like that, I'm all ears. Outside of that, I'm sorry, last time I checked, we all have to exact and exercise and employ discipline in our chosen profession. There's a lot of things I would want to do at work that I can't because it's work, and ESPN doesn't want to allow it. The same might be with you, Molly, or you, Max, or others. I don't want to hear that nonsense. It's absolutely positively embarrassing that this is a subject that is being addressed. It's flat out embarrassing.
You are so wrong about this. In fact, I find that stance embarrassing, Stephen A., and I will tell you why. It's all based on the premise that marijuana is something it's not. Now, the policy in the NFL will weed out, so to speak, the real addicts. Absolutely. And those people have a problem. They are addicted to marijuana. I agree. Whatever the claim is about the addictive properties of marijuana, psychologically or in some other way, they can't give it up because they're jeopardizing enormous financial security, et cetera, in their professional careers. So they have a problem. The only reason we know they have a problem is because they have an absurd law that rule that should actually be illegal in the first place. And what DeMaurice Smith is saying and the players union is saying is, let's look at if for that pool of addicts, let's look at the underlying causes of the addiction. Since marijuana, from a medical sense, from a scientific sense, doesn't have addictive properties. So it's something in the person's personality. They're self-medicating. Maybe it's for pain, depression, etc. Let's look at that. Now, do I think that even needs to be done? No. You know why? Because the only reason marijuana is perceived and treated the way it is because the federal government has been lying about it or else willfully ignorant about it since Harry S. Anslinger, the drug czar, continuing through Jeff Sessions, the current attorney general. They have either been willfully ignorant or lying about it. It is not a Schedule I drug. It is technically because of those political lies, essentially, but it is not in terms of the science. Any of the science, none of it, should it be classified as Schedule I drug. It should be treated, if anything, like alcohol, which, again, according to every measure, is actually worse for you and for society than marijuana. Now, if someone's misbehaving and breaking rules in another sense, and they look into it and it turns out it's alcohol related, they may have to go into an alcohol problem. But alcohol in and of itself isn't tested for. They don't randomly go in and test for alcohol. And by the way, half the states in this union now realize the bogus claim that marijuana should be treated differently than alcohol. But at a federal level, it still isn't. The NFL doesn't have to pay attention to that. They choose to be lockstep with stuff that is simply unscientific, that is untrue. while they're in bed with alcohol companies, they're peddling it on TV during the commercials. They're business partners with drug companies, essentially, that peddle a much worse and more destructive drug than marijuana. They don't randomly test for alcohol. What you're talking about, Stephen A., these players are being busted not for bad behavior, but for violating a policy that shouldn't be there in the first place. And sure, if you put that policy in, you will weed out the hardcore addicts. Yes, just as you would if you put an alcohol policy in.
That's that level right there of alarm and ignorance that should concern us all. I don't want to hear that nonsense about what rules should be in. There's a whole bunch of rules that shouldn't be in, and not just in the world of professional sports and corporate America, but they are what they are. Those who have the gold make the rules. That's the way it goes. If you don't like it, go someplace else and collect a check from a different source. It's just that simple. When you look at, and by the way, I wish you and others would stop making this argument that I am making the case that, oh my goodness, stay off the weed, but feel free to drink all the alcohol you want. I'm not saying that. As far as I'm concerned, the NFL are a bunch of flaming hypocrites. They should get rid of alcohol just like they get rid of marijuana. I'm not making a call one over the other. I'm simply saying what the rules are, the rules are. And if you know these rules are in place, I go to a different level. I don't go all scientific like you do, Max. I'm simple in this regard. Excuse me, the rules are in place. Is smoking some weed worth millions? Yes or no? And when these guys who grew up poor in large proportions made the ultimate sacrifices to their bodies, their minds, on behalf of themselves and the upliftment of their families, are willing to jeopardize all of that because they can't stop puffing, I got a problem with you because you blowing everything you work for. What do you mean that's what it's about?
That's what the union... The players' union is essentially saying, look, you should, like, when you say, well, those...
But that's why I didn't blame them.
But that's what the CBA is. It's a negotiation as to what the rules should be. And what the players' union is saying is, if you're going to keep this absurd and hypocritical rule, then at least let's tailor it to make some sense. Instead of just saying bad addicts don't work, why don't we address the underlying causes of the addiction if we're going to weed out the addicts in the first place? That's all the players' union is saying.
But that's why I did not blame DeMaurice Smith. You represent the players. You're their union leader. I get it. I understand it. That's why I absolved him from my diatribe. All I'm saying is this. You got the NFL. They're talking about being an institution, a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. It's not just about football. It's about life after football. The span of your career is 2.5 to 3 years and all of this other stuff. But you're going to have dudes rolling around all over the place, all high off the weed, and then all of a sudden you're going to sit up there and go like this. Well, we want you to know that we're sensitive to what ails you. We're sensitive to what plagues you. But you're going to send them out in the real world in 3 years when you made it okay for them to get puffed up and high and all zooted out? That's stupid.
They're not
That's
talking
nonsensical.
about getting high in the workplace. They're talking about, just like they're not talking about drinking in the workplace.
After work, Stephen A. They're going to get high after work.
Really? So you're going to get high in the afternoon. So you're going to be all right. Hold on, Max. I just want to be clear. So you're going to be I just want to be clear. You're going to be all right while you practice it. But you're going to go home after Sunday after the game or a week later, whatever the case may be. And it's all right to be high. Oh, by the way, it's all right to continue to get high during the off season when your career span is 2 to 3 years. What kind of a citizen are you going to be when it's over?
The only reason it's a problem is because it's a rule against it in the first place. That's what they're trying to negotiate.
Got to leave it there.